Okay, we're back. I forgot to save the file, so let me do that now. So save scene as. Always save as an ASCII file, and this is going to be Homer model and underscore, let's call it 01, and then I'm just going to describe it by saying setup. So it's the first save file. I know what it is because I've described it, and it's always nice to say whether, you know, like torso finished, setup done, or setup, torso, arms, legs, just so you can, if you make a mistake or something gets corrupted, you can always go back. So be descriptive with your naming, because once you get 50 of these files in your scenes directory, it's going to be hard to tell them apart and which one is good and which one was corrupted, and, you know, etc. So naming important, even the file names. Save as. And we're ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to start with a cylinder. So I'm going to create a polygon cylinder. And I'm just going to hit F now, and that's going to focus me in, and I can look at it. And the default cylinder in Maya, because I use the default settings, has a subdivision axis of 20. So I'm going to set that to 16, which is a fairly good number to start with. And I'm also going to harden the edges, because right now it looks pretty smooth, and I don't really like that for modeling. So I'm going to go and set the mesh display, and I'm going to say harden the edges, and then I get, as you can see, these faceted edges. I may as well just start with this. We could potentially come in here if you wanted, if you knew you wanted 3 or 4 divisions in here, we could set, you know, a bunch of divisions in there and model with those. But I'm really I don't like to put geometry in unless I know I'm going to use it. So what I'll do is I'll try and put in one edge loop at a time and actually tweak that edge loop, like you use it for modeling purposes before moving on to the next insert, rather than inserting 4 and having to deal with all that extra geometry. So I find it's a bit more efficient. Okay, so I'm going to X-ray this geo. We should have a hotkey for that. Oh, but it doesn't work. Wait a minute. 0. Well, look at that. So I'm going to check my hotkeys. The 0 key seems to be problematic. It was in 2014, 2015, I believe, as well. So let me just check my custom scripts, and I've imported them from a previous version, and you can see for some reason it always unmaps the 0. So I have Alt 0, which is the toggle X-ray. So what I might do in here is just make this Control 0, and it's not assigned to anything, so I'm going to save and close, and that will stop the, every time I close Maya and open it, it seems to unmap that 0 hotkey. So now I can do Control 0 to X-ray the geometry. And I'm just going to scale it up. So I'm going to hit R, I'm going to scale from the middle, always scale from the middle. If you start scaling like this, you will have a non-round Homer, which is not what we want, unless we actually physically move the verts ourselves. So always scale from the middle, unless you want to skew them, but I don't at this stage. So I'm going to scale it up, and I'm going to keep going until I kind of hit the bottom of a shirt and maybe the top of a shirt. I'm not quite there yet, so I'm gonna scale that up even more. And then of course now I'm below his shirt, so let's pull that up. And then I've got the top running roughly through the middle of his collar, right? So not the front and not the back, as you can see it's on an angle here in the side view. So I'm kind of hitting the middle. And I'm touching this side of his shirt, but you see I'm not touching that side, which tells me that the image isn't symmetrical, because I know that the cylinder is. So this is where it gets a bit weird, because like I said, it's almost like he's rotated slightly to his left, and so that's warping the perspective on the drawing. Damn you, 2D artist. Okay, so we'll work with that. Okay, I'm gonna just hide the grid because it seems to get in the way sometimes. It's a bit easier to see what's going on. So I've scaled up the cylinder, and I've adjusted it. It looks to be okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for landmarks on the surface and insert one edge loop at a time. So the first obvious one to me is this indentation right here. So we got his chest, and then boom, his belly, and so chest, and then belly. So if I want to match the contour silhouette of his torso, I need to put in a loop right about there. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I'm going to click and drag, going to line it up, and then what should happen is it should be selected. So I can just hit R for scale, and then again, scaling from the middle, I'm going to scale that down. And we've got a choice of which side we want to match here. So I don't know, if I go into there, it might be a bit too small. So I might try matching his his right side, so the left side in our view. So then the bottom needs to get bigger. So vertex, I'm going to select all the verts on the bottom and scale those out. And I'm trying to get this corner to match this corner. So that looks about right. And then the collar, same deal, scale that in from the middle. And I'm not worried about the outside of the collar because you think of his shirt hits his neck and then curls out. So I'm more interested in this inner line. So I'm going to go into about there. Yeah, it's a bit weird. See, that's the problem with the drawing. I'm actually going to maybe just scale this in a bit more. I'm going to use this side, and then if later we decide that he needs to be a bit bigger overall, we can do that. So I'm going to model to this side. I think it's going to give me better results. Okay, so that's one done. But this is going to be straight. So if we looked in the side view, hide the grid so I can see. Right now I want to round off his belly, his silhouette here. So to do that, I really need to insert another loop. So again, halfway, more or less halfway between here. So I'm going to go Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I'm going to click and drag on a vertical edge. I'm just going to put in a loop. And then again, I can use the scale from the middle. And you can see if I scale it up, his back is different than his front. So let's just maybe shift that forward slightly. And all of a sudden now it's touching. And the same for the bottom. So I'm going to go to vertex for that. Bottom row, shift it forward a little bit, scale it up a little bit. So I'm not worried about the curvature just yet. I'm just worried about getting kind of roughing in the silhouette. Same for his midpoint here. Scale it up a bit, translate it forward a little bit. Still not big enough. Scale it up some more. Maybe I'll raise this slightly. Okay, not so bad. Collar, same deal. I'm going to grab the verts on the top, shift them forward. Right, we were looking for the middle, so there's the middle. And then I'm going to scale it out slightly. And then I'm going to check the front, because I was scaling from the middle. You can see how it's made this too big. So now I'm actually going to skew it. And now I'm actually going to skew it. And now I'm actually going to skew it. So I'm not scaling from the middle. That's what I mean by skewing. I'm scaling, but I'm offset scaling. Like that. So the side view isn't disturbed. It looks good in silhouette. Front view, silhouette looks good as well. And then I need a division here to help with this kind of rounded chest shape that he's got. So Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. Click and drag. And what I'm going to do for this one actually is I'm going to kind of define his shoulder. And then I want to also define where his arms are coming out, which is about here. Something like that. And do those need to be adjusted? So I need to exit the tool, Q, vertex, or edge loop. I could go to edge, I could double click. It's the same thing as going to vertex and marqueing, all of them. They both work. So does that need to scale in a little bit? Where did my mouse go? I don't know. And then maybe one in the middle to round it off. So Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. So there's another one that goes in. And this one I'm going to scale up. Just to get this rounded, double click, scale down, double click, scale down. So again, just trying to match silhouettes. Let's check the side view. How are we doing there? So double click, shift double click, skew. So that's scale in one dimension. Double click, bring that down slightly. Shift it back. And double click. And this might be a good time because we've been modeling square to the grid, but you can see he does sort of have this slope and he does have a kind of arc in the edge loops. They're not straight. So I'm going to start, I guess, at the bottom or the top. I'm going to start at the bottom and I'm going to try and match these points to the points on the geo. So one at a time or two at a time or whatever works. Marquee selecting, so you're getting the points on both sides. The bottom is going to look a little bit weird. It's okay. Bring that in. Bring this out. And now for maybe this one, I'm going to start by grabbing it, double clicking the edge loop, E for rotate. I'm going to just twist it slightly. So a bit of a rotation in X, and then reposition, and I'm going to need to rescale this, and I'm going to skew it. Looks like it comes down and then it kind of goes over his butt here. So I'm going to probably insert another edge loop for that later. And then if I want to arc this slightly, the middle points are going to come down. So I'm just marquee selecting, grabbing them, dragging them down, trying to get an arc going with my edge loops marquee. And you can see this line kind of comes out and comes down, so I'm going to straighten these out as well. So I'm going to be dragging these back, trying to get this a bit straighter, or give it a nice curve. Okay, so here we have 2 for the arms. I'm going to pull these down. Let's start getting a bit of an arc in here. And it's lots of tweaking. That can come back. That can come back. Let's bring this back. So it looks like this edge loop right here. This one, I'll double click it. I kind of want that centered on his arm. So I'm going to just, grab these and just drag that back. So it's middle. Oops. No, got to marquee select the vertex. So vertex, marquee, and pull that back. And then this goes back, and this goes back, and this maybe now comes forward a bit. So that this is poly modeling, and this I'm going to follow the line on his collar. The manipulator can get in the way of other selections. I can actually grab that little 2D translate, so bit tedious. And let's pull these back because we want these to go back. So lots of back and forth, adjust, 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 move, 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 then put them back or move them again. So I'm just trying to make a nice clean mesh. And for these top ones, again, I'm going to grab them all and I'm going to rotate, so E, and I'm going to just tilt that so it matches his collar line. And then maybe it needs to scale out a little bit and then translate a bit. So we're matching that now. Let's keep that down there. So let's pull this back. So I'm trying to frame his arm, and then you can even do something like this, where you start to round off to kind of wrap it around where his shoulder would be. And that can maybe come down a bit. These can come in as well. His arm is going to be round. Pull these down a bit. Oh, didn't marquee those. So the verts on the other side are visible. I'm just going to overlap those as best I can. And yeah, so there's something-ish, kind of, sort of. So if we look at these faces here, those are kind of the faces we're going to pull the arm out of. So the more time I can spend tweaking the shape of this, the rounder I can get this before I extrude it, the better off we're going to be. So I'm really going to, it may look a bit weird now, the way I'm skewing this, but it's actually going to be pretty useful. And I'm going to probably be inserting another edge loop here, so I'm just going to pull this down some more. And that's going to help with the skew. So let's make that a bit rounder, and a bit rounder, a bit rounder, and the center of this. So that's all good. So that's from the side view. So let's see what that looks like in the front view. So in the front view now, because we skewed it, we can start to see. So if I double click this edge loop, we can see the back portion of the edge loop. And that may start to get a little bit confusing. And as you can see as well, these are probably going to need to be scaled out again, because they don't no longer kind of match the silhouette. So I'm going to pull these back in and out. just to get this. So the rest of it looks pretty close. That looks a bit weird. So let's grab these and let's try and pull these back down again. So the front ones are going to go up. The back ones can stay where they are. Tweak, tweak, tweak. All right, so yeah, that's something, I guess. What does that look like in perspective? Ooh, somehow I moved really far away. There we are. So I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to un-X-ray, so Control 0. And there we have, hide the grid. I'm going to harden my edges. So I'm going to go to Mesh Display, harden the edge. And there we have a rough shape of Homer's torso, really rough. Needs a lot of tweaking, but we've made progress. We have a belly forming, and we have the arms isolated and ready to go. And we've got a circle ready to go for the extrude. And that would be one of the next steps. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on maybe the collar a little bit, and then I like to pull out the pelvis as well, and then we'll do what's called the proxy. I may have done this in class where we delete half the character, and then I can do the arm and the leg after the proxy. So we'll save this out. It's been 16 minutes. That's a longish video. We'll come back. We'll tweak out the collar. We'll do the pelvis, and then the next video after that we'll do the arms and the legs. And the head will be done separately. So anyway, into object mode, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the geo, I'm going to freeze it, so modify freeze transformations. There's no reason to keep the construction history, so I'm going to edit, delete by type, history, and may as well name it. So let's call this torso _ geo. And yeah. If you want to open it quicker, put it in wireframe, that can help. It won't make a difference in this scene, but for the other scenes. And then I'm going to give it a save scene, and this is model number 2, and it is torso. And again, MA file, save as. Let's go in the scenes directory, and I'll see you in a bit.